My entitled wife disappeared after a girls' trip. Years later she showed up at my doorstep with a baby, so I destroyed her life. I used to be happily married to my wife for over 4 years. 4 freaking years, and she left it all behind anyway. We never had any problems in our relationship. But right after we got married, we found out that I can't have kids. My S count was extremely low. That was a very big shock because we had both agreed that we wanted at least 2 kids of our own. It even had me go into depression, from which I luckily recovered thanks to therapy. Over the 4 years, I tried to get her to agree to other options, one of which was adopting. But she denied everything, insisting that she was fine even without kids. That was surprising and unbelievable, because before marriage, she would always tell me how much she wanted kids. She would literally sit for hours and look at stuff she wanted to buy for her future child. But after that day at the doctor's appointment, she became completely numb to anything baby-related. She would often make offhanded comments about me, insulting my weight and lack of fitness. But when I confronted her, she would deny everything and claim that everything was normal. Her change bothered me at the start because I thought she was forcing herself to accept reality, but as time went on I forgot about it and moved on. Then came the big moment, her planned trip. We lived in Brighton, which is in Europe, and she wanted to go to America for a trip with her friends. This wasn't the first girls' trip she had gone on, so I was very supportive of her. I even helped her pack and bought her new clothes to wear on the trip. Little did I know, she had a crazy plan cooking inside her head. After dropping her at the airport, I went home and stayed up so I could call her and make sure she was safe when she landed. After 9 hours of drinking coffee to stay awake, I checked that her flight had landed and called her to make sure. The ringtone rang, but she didn't pick up. I tried a few more times, and even texted her about it, but still, there was no reply. Thinking she was tired and had gone to sleep at the hotel, I also tucked myself into the bed. But since I was still extremely worried about her well-being, I kept waking up and checking my phone for updates. In the morning, I noticed that she still hadn't called back or replied to my texts. After trying for a few more minutes, I called her sister to ask if she had talked to my wife. She hadn't, so I decided to call my wife's friends who were supposed to be on the trip with her. That might sound very invasive, but I genuinely thought it was an emergency. For the longest time, I have had a fear of my plane crashing into the water, and I didn't want my wife to go through that horrible fate. But when I called her friends, guess where they were at? They were 2 blocks away, having morning tea at a cafe. I thought it was a silly prank and I was being messed with. But no. My wife had truly disappeared, and abandoned me. I was distraught and completely went off the rail. I got really drunk and showed up at her parents' house, claiming that they were hiding them. My mother-in-law was really kind and understanding of my situation, however. She let me in her home and comforted me for days. I can't remember how many times I cried on her shoulder. Eventually, I accepted reality and began working on moving on. It took me a long time. Even with the support of my family and friends, I still missed my wife a lot. I kept thinking that she hadn't abandoned me, and maybe she had suffered a terrible fate and was waiting for me to rescue her. I had to go to therapy for 2 long years before I stopped having nightmares about her being lost in a forest. But I didn't give up and did in fact move on. I was going on golf trips with my friends again. Going to pubs with them and getting absolutely smashed. Joining the gym and finally working on my fitness level. I even got a promotion at my company. I thought that my life, which had stopped in time, was finally moving again, and I was happy. But of course, my wife had to ruin that as well. A little less than 4 years after she disappeared, I saw my wife standing at my door with a baby in her arms.